find a way.
Missy Sturgill, I'm so glad you're here because I think you guys are doing really, really important stuff and not enough people know about it. And today I want to dive all in about what you guys are doing at CASA.
Yeah.
Tell me first, let's talk about the problem out there that you're a part of solving.
The problem in our communities, and it's every community, it's everywhere, child abuse and neglect. I'm with CASA for Kids, and we advocate for abused and neglected children in the court system. And a staggering statistic that I found this morning was 67,000 cases came to the attention of the juvenile courts in 2024
And
in the state of Tennessee.
67,000.
67,000, yes.
In the state of Tennessee.
And within our communities, we serve Sullivan and Hawkins Counties. So within those two counties in East Tennessee, we're looking at about 3,000 cases, 3,000 to 4,000 cases in our community. That's a lot. And it's a lot. And it's a major problem.
When you talk about 20 work days in a week, the court's open 20 days a week, or like
a month,
20 days a month.
Yeah.
You're talking about you're close to 100 a day
Yes.
of new cases of abuse and neglect of kids just in our county.
Yes.
67,000 across the state.
Yes.
Tell me what a case looks like a case that you're not involved with, just one of those 67,000s. Like, what does that case look like in a courtroom?
You know, we child abuse actually affected my family. And I guess that's something that I can walk you through is how, what happened and how CASA stepped in and potentially saved a life.
Yeah.
But it's very personal to me. It's one of those things where you don't think it can happen to you. I guess, you know, I grew up with a great family and that kind of thing. And I was very close to my cousin. She and I were within a year apart in age. And so, you know, we spent a lot of time together, as a lot of time cousins do. And, you know, she had a great family. She had a great mom and dad and brother and, you know, very similar, being raised very, very much the same way. And, you know, she got into a bad relationship and got on drugs and ended up abusing her son. And throughout, there were a lot of different red flags, I guess, we just didn't see.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can happen to anyone. And that's the crazy thought is, you know, we have a very solid family and it can happen in anybody's family.
Yeah. I mean, this is happening. This is not, the numbers are staggering.
Yes.
Right. So this is not like some certain demographic that this is happening to. This is not a narrow part of the population.
Yeah.
This is across, this is widespread.
It really is.
Right?
You know, typically it's the lower economic, I guess, class. Yeah. Those that aren't, that doesn't have as much money, you know, financially kind of thing. But, you know, that's not always the case.
Yeah. And your family would not have, you
was
guys
not.
would not have been targeted as a high risk.
Absolutely not.
So tell me, let's look at that story.
Okay.
And take me back to the beginning of how that transpired. Where did the problem start?
You know, my cousin, she got pregnant at age 19. She was a single mom.
Yeah.
She was doing really well for herself. She had a really great job. She was providing for her son. My parents was a big part of his life from the beginning, though.
Okay.
I always say that he was my 21st birthday present because on my 21st birthday, she came to me and showed me an ultrasound and told me she was pregnant. And so quite the shock, but you know, you just roll with it. And so we kind of rolled with it. And so from the very beginning, the very first moment that we found out about Devon, he was a part of our family from, the get-go. We just, baby showers. And when he was born, he actually came home to my parents' house. My cousin's mother wasn't didn't have the space in her home, I guess, for a baby and that kind of thing. So, and my parents did, and we love babies. Yeah. So he actually came home from the hospital to my parents' house. And so we were always a big part of his life.
Yeah. So a support system right from the beginning.
Wonderful
this
support
is not
system.
a high risk.
Absolutely
not a high risk environment.
No. They had the mom and Devon had everything they needed and more. And again, she had a great job. She was providing. She was doing really well. And she got mixed up in the wrong crowd, which unfortunately happens, can happen to a lot of people.
Yeah.
They can be easily influenced.
Yeah. Especially young.
Exactly.
Young, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And vulnerable. She was a single mom. And really, 19's not super young, but I would consider it kind of still a child in a sense, Yeah. I was in college at 19 and, I was not doing necessarily adult things, but, she was doing really well, but she got mixed in with the wrong crowd. She got a boyfriend that was really bad. He ended up being wanted in a few states. He ended up, he was on drugs. He was a dealer, a really bad person. And, she just fell into that trap and, he had money and she was getting more and wasn't having to work as much because he was providing but it was a bad relationship. Full of drugs and just not the right people around her and her son. And
what was the gateway? Was there a gateway drug?
There was everything. At that point, it was cocaine. This was back, almost 20 years ago now. Yeah, right. So, cocaine, there was, of course, marijuana and that kind of thing, but pills. But we noticed she would call, hey, on Friday and, hey, can you watch Devon over the weekend? And so she would drop him off Friday. Well, of course, we were like, of course we can. And so she would drop him off on a Friday and we wouldn't hear from her until Monday or maybe even Tuesday. Which, we were providing for him, taking care of him. It wasn't that big of a deal, but it was not a good thing, for his mother not to call and check on him.
Some little yellow flags.
Exactly, yes.
In the beginning.
And then, he was 6 years old, and he started not wanting to go home with her. When she would come to pick him up, he didn't really want to go. And we sort of thought, well, he's having a great time at our house. We're taking him to Walmart, getting him a toy. We're taking him, let's go get some ice cream. And so we thought, well, maybe, he just enjoys staying at our house, that kind of thing. So we didn't think much about it. Again, you just don't think it can happen to you. And then at one point, he just decided he was not going home. And he started telling my parents that he was scared and that it hurt.
How far in terms of months?
We're looking at probably 4 or 5 months maybe that this went on. But again, we were like, he's having a good time at our house. He was the only child, the youngest one, and we were all paying him attention and taking him to playgrounds. And we were doing a lot of fun things with him and things like that. So,
but it took 4 or 5 months.
It really did,
for him to voice, that he was afraid to go home. And this is family. This is not like you guys are strangers, and it took time to warm up.
Yes, he has known us from minute one of his life. Yes.
And it took him 4 or 5. That's interesting to me that it takes that long.
Well, and the thing is there was a level of fear. He didn't necessarily want his mom to get in trouble, but he knew he was not in a good situation at 6 years old. He's around people that he doesn't feel safe with.
Yeah.
So
he tells you what?
He tells us that he doesn't want to go home. He's not going home, and that he's afraid and that it hurts. And we're like, what is it? What's going on? And he didn't really say, but we knew there were things, with his mom not calling for 3 or 4 days, and we knew that there was a relationship and that she was a lot more distant from us. And so there were, some things we were kind of putting together of, what could be happening here,
But
and
you had not really considered the possibility of abuse.
No.
Up until that point.
Right. He was a skinny kid, but you know how they get those growth spurts, and then they'll kind of chunk up a little bit, and they'll grow. It's one of those things with kids. But he was a skinny kid, and he didn't really eat that great, but he was a picky kid. It was one of those things. But my parents at that point went the next day. This was a Sunday night. Went the next day to. Well, they called a friend of theirs that was an attorney. Hey, this is what it is. This is what we've heard. What should we do? Is there something going on? Should, who do we call about this? And he said, well, you need to go to juvenile court, and you can file a petition for custody, and you can start an investigation. And at that point, the judge, so they go to juvenile court the next day in Kingsport, and they say, hey, we think something's going on, file a petition for custody, and DCS, Department of Children's Services, is called. Okay. And at that point, DCS calls his mother and says, hey, we've been referred, it's come to our attention. We need to come to your house and do a visit. There's, alleged abuse, or, we need to start an investigation. And they said, we're going to be there at so-and-so day at so-and-so time. Well, she had plenty of time to make things right at her house.
Yeah.
And when they showed up, everything looked great. It's a model home. And they said, okay, nothing to see here. Case closed. And the juvenile judge at that point also appointed CASA to the case. Appointed CASA for kids to the case.
Okay.
And CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. And we had never heard of them before. No idea what they did. But we got a call from this CASA volunteer. It was a lady, African-American lady. Her name was Jenny. And she called and said, hey, the judge has appointed us to the case. And appointed me to the case. And even though DCS did not find anything, I would like to come out and see your home and talk to Devon. And my parents were given temporary custody at that point. And
so you're still in the process of them doing the home visit, and kind of this is on the radar of the courts.
Yes.
But you're in this interim period. You've got temporary custody, and the judge has connected you with the CASA advocate.
See, that's the key for CASA. Court-appointed special advocates, we have to be appointed by the court. You can't pick up the phone and call us and say, hey, I think this is happening. Can you look into this? We have to be appointed by the court system, by the judge. So that's the key for us.
Yeah.
And so he had done that. In the meantime, Devon's mother took off to Ohio and just left. We didn't have a number. We didn't know where she was going. She just, we have Devon. I'm good. And she's gone. She's out of the picture. We have no idea, no way to get in touch with her. And so we told the CASA volunteer that. We told her that. And, she comes into my parents' home, and, she's making sure they have food, making sure that, medicines are locked up or out of reach of children. They're, making sure there's, no weapons. It's a safe environment.
And this is the CASA advocate because DCS just did the home visit. They've got to be inundated with cases.
And that's the thing with Department of Children's Services and CPS, Child Protective Services, all of those state-run agencies. There's so much red tape, and they're so overwhelmed. They don't have enough people. They don't have enough workers. They don't have enough to do to really put the time and effort into every case that they need. And that's where CASA is. That's the blessing that CASA is. CASA works with volunteers. Our volunteers do the work. So it's on their time. They're not told, well, you can only spend an hour here.
Yeah.
If they need to spend 4 hours,
Yeah.
they spend 4 hours.
So that advocate Jenny comes into the she comes into the house,
Into my parents' home, yes.
and we're in this interim period where
Yes.
this is kind of in this.
And she's just talking to Devon, just getting to know him. He is 6 years old at the time, and just saying, hey, I'm going to be your friend. I'm going to be here and talk to you, and I'm going to come visit you, and asking him questions. Just trying to gain his trust.
Mm.
And at first, he didn't say much. He didn't talk a lot. He just didn't.
Yeah, it took him 5 months to tell the people closest to him. How long is it going to take to develop trust with a stranger?
So in that process, she is in the process of doing background checks on his mother, doing background checks on this boyfriend that she has. She does background checks on my parents. Everybody involved in his life. She is calling the school system. What does his grades look like? She's speaking with teachers. She's contacting his pediatrician and getting medical records.
Wow.
She's doing the legwork and finding out what this child's life is like.
And that's important because DCS just did a scheduled home visit.
Yes, they came to the home. They spent an hour. Everything looks great here.
From their perspective, there's not a problem here.
Yes.
And the CASA advocate is the one that digs deeper.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have that time. They're a volunteer. It's their own time that they're using to dig deeper and really find out what is going on in Devon's life. And, she reports to my parents. She said he's just a couple days short of truancy in the school system. She has spoken with teachers, and his teachers are saying, there's many days, consecutive days, that he won't come to school. And they've noticed some bruising. They've noticed that he's fearful of certain things and activities. And, there's a lot of red flags popping up at that point, And in the meantime, she is, again, coming to my parents' house on a weekly or biweekly basis, gaining his trust. Kind of, I guess, becoming a friend or a person that he can talk to and trust. And
how often were these visits? Like how?
Early on, it was pretty frequent. It was, every week or so.
Wow.
And she would also go to his school and speak with him.
Yeah.
And that's something that our CASA volunteers do a lot of times. If it's a school-age child, they'll meet them at school and talk with them there because school is oftentimes a safe place for them. They're not around necessarily maybe an abuser or a place where they're scared or things like that. So school is a place where kids often open up. So she was going to speak with him at the school. And, he was seeing her there. He was seeing her at my parents' house and that kind of thing. So she was doing a lot of legwork to figure out what was going on. After 3 months, she had formed a report of things she had found initially and had written those up. And at our court case in 3 months, she reported that to the judge. She gave that report to the judge. And it was, the mom needs a job. The mom needs to move back here. The mom needs a valid driver's license. She didn't have her own apartment. She needs to get her own apartment. She had been drug tested. She needs some drug and alcohol counseling. Again, they had found out that the boyfriend was wanted, had a list of a rap sheet a mile long of felonies.
Yeah.
And, she's got to separate from this person.
Yeah.
All these things to get her son back. And she said, and at this point, Devon is in a safe place and is thriving. So I recommend that he stay at my parents' home. And so the judge, absolutely, that's what we're going to do. Our judges have said before that CASA are the eyes and ears of the judge outside the courtroom. That's something that they've said that CASA CASA
I can
is.
see why. There's so many cases.
Yeah.
There's
3,000 in this area.
Yeah, when you break that down to a day, that's probably 15 a day, a working day.
Yeah.
a court day. Like, that's great. Like, so many. Like, judges are overwhelmed. DCS is overwhelmed.
Guardian ad litem's attorneys, child attorneys, they're overwhelmed.
Like, how do you scratch beneath the surface?
It's almost an impossible situation.
Volume. So the judge, it sounds like the judge trusts that CASA advocate, trusts the research, and then makes informed decisions based on that.
Yes. Our CASA volunteers are trained by our staff about the court system and about child welfare and about, children's basic needs and what that looks like. And every part of what they need to do to advocate for the child, what they need to look for, who they need to, how to interview children, how to interview parents, how to obtain background checks, how to do all those things. Our volunteers are trained in that. And then they are trained in how to write a report for the court. So it's, to volunteer for CASA, it's not a serving soup for 4 hours and go home and lay it down. It's somewhat of a commitment.
Take me into the courtroom for that court proceeding. How many minutes is that?
Well, it really varies by the case, but a typical court case lasts anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. And, when you think about it, 15 to 30 minutes to decide the fate of a child.
Wow.
It's not a long time.
It's not a long time.
And the thing is the child rarely sees the inside of a courtroom. Devon never went inside of a courtroom.
Okay. So he wasn't physically there.
He was not physically there. That is what our CASA volunteers are there for.
Yeah.
They are there to advocate for the child. They speak and are the voice of that child. So
Jenny collects this information. She advocates for Devon in front of the judge. She's trained in doing that. She can articulate that in 15 to 30 minutes. Devon's not there. And I understand why that's a good thing. But like now Devon's interests are completely dependent upon whoever is assigned as his advocate.
Yes.
In this case, it's a very capable advocate. Let's take Jenny out of it. Let's take CASA out of this. What would that court proceeding have looked? Can you speculate on what that court proceeding would have looked like without her?
If DCS had found something, it would be the DCS worker speaking for him and what that person finds and recommends. Or it could have been a guardian ad litem, which is a child's attorney. It could be any of those players.
But DCS had nothing to bring.
So they were not on the case at all.
They were completely removed.
They were, yes.
So now it is an attorney. Is that a public?
It is my parents' attorney. My parents had hired an attorney.
Okay.
They had hired an attorney just to help them navigate the system because they had no idea how this was going to work. And then it was the CASA volunteer for Devon.
Yeah. So if you guys didn't have the resources to afford that for an attorney, CASA wasn't on the case. DCS isn't. They didn't find a reason. Yeah. Who's speaking for Devon in that situation?
And I'll be honest, I'm not real sure who would be.
Yeah.
When DCS, if CASA isn't assigned to the case, if DCS doesn't find anything, the case is closed. So there's nothing further that goes.
So there may not even
been
a case to attend.
Yes.
So had that happened, I mean, he goes back to his mom.
Back to his mom and is living same old life.
In a different state, though.
Potentially, yes, in Ohio. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very scary, alarming situation. It really is. So, Devon was, they told the judge, recommend, let's keep Devon where he is. He's doing well. And let's go another 3 months out. Let's give the mother a chance to get an attorney and do those things that were lined out in that report, the drug and alcohol counseling, the family counseling, get a driver's license, get a home, get a job, kind of establish herself to be able to get her child back.
Was she at that court proceeding?
She was.
Okay.
She did attend.
Okay.
Yes.
Did she fight for custody?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
No, she didn't. And really, she had no money. She didn't have any.
Yeah.
She's still doing the things that are not good for her or her child, and those were her priorities.
Okay.
Unfortunately, when people are on drugs and alcohol, things like that, their priorities change, and it's not always really what it should be. So, it really does.
Yeah.
So, Devon is another 3 months. He's going to school. He's doing all the things. He's playing flag football. He's playing soccer. He's, Jenny is, our CASA volunteer is continuing to come and talk with him and check on him. And she's continuing to monitor if the mom is doing anything on her side, if she's trying to get her license back, if she's doing anything. And the next 3 months, right before the court date, she does another report and reports to the judge that the mother has done nothing. She has not done anything that the judge ordered. And Devon is still doing well, and here we are.
So in that time, is Jenny still coming like once every couple weeks?
She's calling every now and then.
Okay.
She may drop by, but it was sparingly. It was not frequent at all. Again, she has other priorities and somebody else is taking care of her child.
Sure.
She's not worried at this point.
Yeah. So she's prepared, but she is preparing for that next court proceeding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next one, the judge sees the CASA report. The mother has done nothing. Devon is still doing well. And okay, they threw out some other recommendations for the mom. You need to get back in Tennessee. You need to do this, and this. And let's set it for 6 months out. So 6 months, CASA volunteer, Jenny is still coming to the house. And at that point, she had really gained Devon's trust.
Yeah.
And you could see him kind of start opening up.
Yeah.
And he starts talking.
Yeah.
And he starts talking about the things that he's experienced with his mother. Starts talking about being what he called, now this is a 7-year-old at the time, choke slammed. And he said he was picked up by the neck and thrown. That's what he called choke slammed. He could tell you all about drugs, how to weigh things, that they had scales and that they had baggies, Ziploc baggies, and that they would have to divide things up. Yeah.
He's 6.
He
Six,
just turned 7.
Yeah.
He said that at one point they were in Ohio. It was a very cold place, and he didn't have a coat, and his shoes didn't fit good, so his feet hurt, and he had to sleep on the floor. We don't even know where he was at that point or when that was. At some point we didn't even know.
And we're 7 to 8 months in from when you first got the very first indicator that he said he was scared to go home.
Yes.
And you're 7 months later, you're getting the details.
We're starting to get details. He's starting he's starting to really open up.
Yeah.
And he was scared. Of course, a lot of kids are scared of the dark. I don't really love the dark either, but when he started living with my parents, he slept at a cot at the end of their bed. He would oftentimes ask them to check every window and door before he would go to sleep to make sure it was locked so bad people couldn't come in. Little things like that. He liked to sleep with music on. And, we kind of thought, well, maybe it's so he doesn't hear other things.
In retrospect, you can look back and you can kind of see like, all right, this was a pattern.
Yeah.
You can connect the dots. But if you go back in time, like there was no reason.
There was not.
Like you just wonder. Like
we had no reason to worry.
Right.
Yeah. We noticed that he always ate really fast, but he's a kid. I mean, who knows? So he would eat really fast. And sometimes after he would eat really fast, he would sometimes get sick. So my parents had to really slow down. It's okay. And later he said that if he didn't eat fast, if he wasn't done, they would take his food. So if he didn't finish his food, when everybody else was done, they would just take it and he didn't get to finish. Yeah. So that's why he ate fast. I mean, it's little things that he's starting to reveal to us. And we're like, well, that's why he does that.
Mm-hmm.
Or that's why this, you know, but and we don't think we don't know those things.
Yeah.
It was really heartbreaking to hear those things and the things that he had went through. You know, we had bought him several Christmas presents and they were nowhere to be found. And one of them was like a tricycle kind of thing, like a bike, training wheels. And he said that he never got to ride it, that his mom took it back. Wow. So I would imagine she probably took it back and got the money for it, you know. Yeah, wow. So throughout this time, our CASA volunteer is learning more things. And his mom is back in Tennessee, but has done nothing, has not done any counseling, gotten her license, gotten a home, taken any steps at all, made no effort. And actually the visits got less frequent and the phone calls got less frequent.
Yeah. He's in a safe place.
He's thriving. He's doing amazing at the time. Yeah. He's having a good time. Yeah. Like I said, he's playing flag football. He's playing soccer. He's doing really well in school. His grades had really picked up. He's starting to put on weight. He's really thriving at my parents' home.
And then the next court date.
Yeah, the next court date was about a year from the very first one. And the CASA volunteer had told my parents, she said, you know, from what I'm hearing, everything that he's revealed to me, there's no way he can go back to his mother. There's no way. And she's not done anything. She's made no effort to do the things that she's supposed to do. And she said, he's thriving. He loves it here. He has said that he wants to stay. And she said, so I'm going to recommend to the judge that we make this permanent. And so the next court date, the CASA volunteer, Jenny, gave the report to the judge and recommended that my parents be given permanent custody of Devon. And that the mother, after she completes some drug and alcohol counseling, some family counseling, some anger management things, she could potentially have some visitation. And the judge at that point, he said, I'm following the CASA report pretty much to the letter. He said, and he told the mother, he said, I don't want to see you back in my courtroom until you've dotted every I and crossed every T of every order I've put forth this year.
Right. And so they get permanent
custody of him. Yes.
And
a big sigh of relief for us.
Yeah.
I mean, we knew that the CASA volunteer was advocating for him and knew what a great, you know, that he was doing well. But, you know, we were always nervous. You never know what it's up to the judge ultimately what he wants to do. You know, he takes the CASA volunteer's report, but he doesn't necessarily have to follow it. But we were always nervous, you know, are we going to lose him? Are we going to lose custody? But it was a big sigh of relief for us that we were granted permanent custody of Devon. So
there's a lot of pieces there that set that road up for success.
Yes.
For Devon, because there's multiple roads to a bad outcome here. Yeah. Right. Like it's a narrow path.
It is. A
narrow path for a kid to escape those kinds of cycles of violence. And so he was fortunate in that he had a support system of extended family.
Yes. It was family. And I think that's key too.
Yeah.
It wasn't just friends or necessarily a foster family.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had blood relatives that he had been connected to from the very beginning.
Yeah. That were stable.
Stable. Yes.
And, you know, I talked to Salvation Army, talked about homelessness. It says, you know, the solution is usually family. A lot of families don't have that stable solution. So Devon's fortunate in that he does have a stable extended family that's part of the solution. He's fortunate that CASA was there. And like without either of those two things, even with the supportive family, there's not a path to success here.
There's really not.
Like the family's limited on what a family can do in the courts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And, you know, the CASA volunteer, Jenny, I always remember what she said. She said, you know, I'm not sure. She said, everything looks good from the surface. She said, but I just got a gut feeling something's not right. She said, everything looks too good.
Wow.
And she said, I just have a gut feeling that something's not right. And she said, I'm going to look into some things. And man, what a blessing that she did, because if she hadn't have had that gut feeling, and if she hadn't have, she could have easily listened to what DCS said. Well, DCS said there's nothing going on there. I could take their word for it. I could just take their word for it and not really see for myself, or I could not spend that extra time doing those background checks, doing the legwork. Yeah. And just, I think we're good.
Jenny is the hero of the story.
She is the hero. Jenny, the CASA volunteer, is absolutely the hero. Yeah. She's the key.
Let's talk about her.
Yeah.
Because CASA empowers people like Jenny.
Yes.
Let's talk about Jenny. I want to hear, what was her story?
Well, unfortunately, she passed about 10 years ago. But Jenny was probably, I would dare to say, maybe mid to late 50s.
Okay.
African-American lady. Yeah. She was beautiful. And she just had a heart for kids. She loved kids.
Wow.
She had a heart for kids and liked talking with kids. And I always said that she was nosy too. And, I think that's a great quality for her. But, she was interested in learning about Devon. She was interested in meeting him and getting to know him. And, she was interested in getting to know, my parents that were, his guardians at the time. And, what they needed. Hey, do you need something? Do you need counseling? Do you need financial help? Do you need this? She was willing to help my parents connect dots.
Trying to solve problems.
She really was. And, I have to say that CASA for Kids, the staff, was a major part of training her and giving her the resources and the tools to be able to do those things for Devon and for my family.
She's not a trained social worker,
nope,
right? Like
she was not. She was a retired. She had retired from, I think, the school system.
Okay.
And she was just a retired person that had some extra time on her hands and wanted to help children.
Wow.
And but she was an amazing lady.
Yeah. So how many months did she spend on this particular?
It was right at a year that she spent with Devon.
Okay.
Right at a year.
Yeah.
And then from start to finish.
And how many does a typical volunteer like Jenny, like how many cases do they have going on at a time?
Well, CASA for Kids is actually under a couple different, I guess you would say, umbrellas. There is a Tennessee CASA that kind of oversees every CASA program in the state. And so we're under their umbrella, the Tennessee CASA umbrella. And then we're also, as a whole, there is a national CASA.
Okay.
That all of the states, all of the programs fall under. And they have guidelines and standards of how to navigate the system, training for the volunteers, top to bottom from your organization standards of how, you train and things we have to go by. So we have to follow all of those things. But each volunteer can have 2 cases at a time.
Okay.
They can often have more than 2 cases, but they have to be in more of a monitoring stage. So like in the initial part of the case, you're a lot busier and you're doing more background checks and you're doing a lot more legwork and visits and things like that. Once the case goes, for a couple weeks, couple months, that kind of thing, things kind of calm down and you're more monitoring the situation.
Okay.
You've given the recommendations to the judge and we're in a kind of a holding pattern, just kind of seeing what's going to happen with the parents or guardians or, the different players.
But you're not in the house every week.
You're not in the house it's more of a monitoring situation. You're maybe, instead of visiting every week, you're making a phone call.
Yeah.
Doing a Zoom or doing a video call kind of thing. So it's more of a monitoring. And then if they're in that stage, then they can take on a couple more cases if they would like. So, another 2 or 3 at the time.
So Jenny, when she was doing this, and this was a pretty, I would imagine this is a pretty expedited process because the mother didn't necessarily fight very hard.
Yeah.
And he had a clear answer to where he should be. All cases are not
No. And the thing is, and this was 20 years ago. Now, things are a lot more complex. You have typically, there's a lot more players. CASA volunteers work oftentimes with DCS because DCS is on the case.
Okay.
We're working with guardian ad litems. Which is the child's attorneys. We're working with counselors, mental health counselors. We're working with a lot of different professionals oftentimes within the case. And we're trying to coordinate, we're many times helping each other. Hey, we found out this, we did a home visit here, and this is what we found. Here's what we know. What did you find out about this? So it's a lot of collaboration, more collaboration. And there's a lot more players usually now in the game. There's a mom and she may have 3 kids and potentially each child has a different father, which has a different set of grandparents, which each have a different, potential guardians. So there's cases are a lot more complex now.
Sure.
And to be honest, the court system is so overwhelmed. I mean, let's say 67,000 cases in the state of Tennessee.
Is the trends increasing?
I feel like it is.
Yeah.
With the drug problem that we have, with the economy, not everybody is doing well. There's a lot of, I think, more poverty in a lot of places, and that of course leads to problems and more stress and things like that. There's a major mental health crisis in this world. Mental health is a thing that it's a problem.
You guys see that on
in
the front
probably
lines every day.
95% of our cases, mental health.
95%.
Yes, there's a lot, but with a drug problem, there's mental health issues. They all kind of go hand in hand, and that's the thing. I have a program report, and last year we served 285 children. So in Sullivan and Hawkins County, we advocated for 285 children. In Sullivan County, which is where Bristol sits, which is Bristol and Kingsport, we served 172.
Wow.
172 children in Sullivan County. But, those children are fortunate because they had that voice. They had someone speaking for them.
They had a Jenny.
They did. They had a Jenny. They had that CASA volunteer.
But there's only so many Jennies.
There's only so many Jennies, and we are looking for more Jennies every single day.
So, we've just told the story. We've told the story of a success story, but you only have the capacity to handle 10% of these.
Yeah, we really do.
10% of these cases. 300 out of 3,000.
Every single day, 24/7, 365, we are recruiting volunteers. We are recruiting more CASA volunteers, more Jennies to handle those cases. There are often times that we have to tell the judge we're full and can't take any more cases, which is...
It's got to be heart-wrenching.
It is, because there's cases coming to the attention of the courts every single day.
Yeah.
And many times the judge will call and say, hey, this one's really bad. I really need you on this case.
So the judge has to use some discernment.
They really do.
How to allocate CASA. So tell me, it sounds like you perceive your primary role at this point to be recruiting more Jennies, the heroes of the heroes of the story.
April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And also last week was Volunteer Appreciation Week. And all of our CASA volunteers, like I said, are volunteers. And so we spent most of the month, we went to each jurisdiction and took our CASA volunteers to lunch, presented them with a little gift, just a token.
Yeah.
But I said in every single luncheon that our CASA volunteers are the boots on the ground. They're doing the real CASA mission.
Yeah.
They're advocating and making the difference in the community. I sit at my desk. I do the accounting.
Yeah.
I do the fundraising. I plan fundraising events to raise money so we can recruit more, so we can support our volunteers, so we can, have resources for them. But our CASA volunteers are doing the real work. of CASA.
I've talked to so many nonprofits that are doing just big things, like solving big problems. And there's so much to it. But at the end of the day, the same theme is that the hero is that boots on the ground.
Yeah.
That caseworker or that human being that has the personal connection with the person that needs the need.
Absolutely.
And whether that's Healing Hands or the Salvation Army.
And you know what is great? For the most part, it's volunteers.
Yeah.
It's not people getting paid to do this work.
Yeah.
It's not the staff that sits in the office.
Yeah, there's not enough.
It's the volunteer.
The organization, you can't afford to, you can only afford so much staff, right? Like resources are limited for all these nonprofits.
Yes.
So the only way to scale these solutions is with volunteers like Jenny.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so you see yourself as recruiting those people. And what's interesting is like they don't need a certain kind of training or background.
Absolutely. They need no training and no background.
Yeah.
A lot of times the best volunteers for us are retirees. Or that, older generation, the, 50s, that's just looking for something to do in their spare time that wanted to make a difference. But the one thing that I think, if there is a requirement that person has to have, it's that they want to help a child. Simply, they want to help a child.
Okay, yeah.
They want to they have a heart for a child. That's you don't really have to have that, but I think that's the key is you want to have to help a child, but you don't need any experience in the court system. You don't need any experience in interviewing children or the child welfare system. Nothing, because we train you completely. We take you through what a case looks like. We take you through how to write a report, how to, what the court system looks like. How to advocate. We teach you about the tools and the resources that's within our communities, how to help connect parents to resources to help children. We train you in all of that. So
take me
no
through
experience required.
Man, there's got to be so many people who are retired, but not just retired people. Like I see so many people who are doing jobs that don't give them meaning, or maybe once they gave them meaning and now the job has become so bureaucratic that it's kind of lost its meaning along the way, but it's hard to retool and do something different.
Recently we've seen a trend where we've had a couple, several younger generation volunteers come in and want to help.
Like how old?
We had a volunteer sworn in a couple months ago. I want to say she's 25, 24, 25.
Yeah.
Which, at my age, I call a kid. But, she didn't have the best home life, didn't have the best life growing up, and wants to do something for kids that they're in the same situation she was in. Yeah. She wasn't necessarily abused, but she wants to help those that are. And so we're starting to see the younger generation kind of see the need and want to step in and help. So we have CASA volunteers literally from age 24 to 70 plus.
Wow. Yeah. Well, tell me what that looks like, because it just seems like such an opportunity to make like a tangible difference.
It really is.
This is not like theoretical difference. This is like real difference.
To become a CASA volunteer, like I said, you have to have a heart for a child. Yep. You have to want to help a child. Yep. But it's very easy. You can go to our website, which is CASA, CASA, the number 4 kids, inc.org, O-R-G. You can give us a call, 423-247-1161, and call me. My extension is extension 3. Yeah. But you can go online, search CASA for Kids. There's an application online that you can fill out, send in.
So I do that, and then what? What can I expect? Like I'm going to talk to you or somebody on your team?
What we're going to ask you to do is we're going to ask you to come in for an interview. We're going to do a background check because we are working with children. So background checks are required. You have to pass those, and it's at the local level and then the state level. And then you have to, of course, it's the TBI and child abuse registry.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be able to pass a background check, and then we're going to interview you. And then if we see that it's a good fit, we're going to start you in training. We have online training available.
Okay.
A lot of our younger people like the online training where they can sit and click through like a website and click through slides and things like that, and then meet with a mentor once a week and go over that material and answer questions and things like that.
So what kind of commitment is that? Is that weeks or months?
Training is about 32 hours.
Okay.
If it's in-person training, it's usually 1 or 2 evenings a week, or sometimes we have afternoon classes.
Okay.
And it's, 3 hours.
Okay.
A couple times a week. And that's 32 hours of training. And then once you do training, we assign you a mentor. So we just don't let you go. We assign you with another CASA volunteer. And it's kind of like a job shadowing. We'll give you a case, and you and your mentor will go through this case.
Mm-hmm.
And this mentor will help train you, I guess, within the case.
Yeah.
And you'll go to home visits together. You'll do the child interviews together. You'll work the entire case with this CASA volunteer, experienced CASA volunteer.
So 6 to 8 weeks, a couple nights a week, and
you're a CASA volunteer.
I have the training and the ability to go and start taking on cases, but I'm not alone.
Yes. And we have support staff. We have staff in our Bristol office, in our Hawkins County office, and our Kingsport office that, if you're not sure about, hey, I did this interview with a child and I met with a mom and this is what I found out. What do you think about this? And so it's somebody that you can bounce your idea off of and, well, what do you think? Or what's my next steps? Who else should I talk to? Can you help me get background checks? Our staff will help with background checks. Our staff will help with whatever need that you have within this case. We have staff that will help you.
Yeah.
And I say that our staff, they always answer the phone. They always answer the text. On Friday evenings at 7 p.m., they're answering that text because our staff cares about our volunteers. They know that our volunteers are the backbone of our organization.
They're the heroes.
And they're doing the real work. So our staff is always there to help that volunteer with whatever it may be.
So I go through a couple of months of the training.
And then you're actually sworn in by the judge as an officer of the court.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of a cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a pledge and that you have to sign and you're sworn in by the judge. It's a neat thing.
And then I'm going to have how many cases would I be exposed to over the course of a year?
Well, we would give you a case. The thing is we ask you for a year commitment.
Okay.
And the thing that we want is when a child is going through potentially the very worst time in their life, we want that CASA volunteer to be that one consistent person that sticks with them from the beginning of the case to the end of the case. That one person because they may, let's say they're in a foster home. They may be in 2 or 3 foster homes during that time, tossed around. If they have DCS involved, there may be one worker this week and another worker the next month. We want our CASA volunteers to be that one consistent person that they see on a regular basis from the beginning of this awful time until they're ultimately in that safe, permanent home where they're thriving.
Yeah, you go back to Devon. You go back to the kid.
Yeah.
And just recently had a podcast with Margaret Fire Robin talking about her organization and said that kids, and I'm not so sure this isn't for humans as a whole. You need for resilience.
Yeah.
You need three people. And when things go south, when there's instability, when there's crisis, you need 3 people in your life to be resilient through that.
When you say that is absolutely true. I believe that, Matt.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
But yet it's like, but that's not just true for Devon, that's true for me too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so, but in the world, the world that we live now, Like, I think if you went back 50 years, most people could point to 3 people, right? Like,
absolutely.
I think going back to my childhood, like, I think most of my friends could have pointed to 3 people. Fast forward now, like, as isolated and lonely as human beings are, and as busy as we are, 3 people, like, that's a luxury. So that CASA, that advocate, that hero, that Jenny, is really playing the role of one of those 3 people through this crisis, right?
Absolutely.
So it's not, the solution can't be like, we're going to throw a bureaucratic army at this. If 20 people, it's got to be like that one relationship.
And like I said in the story, she didn't immediately get a lot of information from Devon. It took time to break those walls down.
Yeah.
To break those barriers, to gain that
strangers
trust.
Aren't doing that. It took you guys so long.
It did.
I keep going back to that.
Yeah.
Like, how many kids go undiagnosed? Like, I mean, there's 67,000 a year in Tennessee. Those are ones that we know about.
Yeah, that we know about.
Like, how
that are reported.
Many don't have somebody that they trust that this ever comes to surface.
Right.
Like, it's got to be.
Yeah, exactly. So we want that CASA volunteer to be that one consistent person. So, once you're sworn in, if you can handle one case, we'll give you that one case. And we usually try to make it a case that will be a good fit for you. If you have certain experience in or maybe even triggers in certain areas, we'll maybe keep you away from a certain type of case, or, that'll be a case that you might be great at and could really connect with, and that kind of thing. So, and then once you get more comfortable and want to take more cases, we'll let you do that.
Yeah. I suspect that everybody's scared of commitment. You're talking about a year, like, to do important things, like, you have to commit to it. Right?
And you know what? Usually our CASA volunteers once they make that commitment and they get into that case and they see that difference that they're making. Yeah. They stick with it. I mean, we have a volunteer that's been there over 20 years.
Yeah. What are the volunteers? What are they surprised by?
Not much these days.
Oh, well, I mean, no, when they start.
They're surprised.
They come in and this is all new. Yeah. Right. Like,
and our volunteers typically come from they're very diverse people. You've got men and women and older people and younger people and of all different backgrounds.
It's not a specific skill set you need. You just need to care about kids.
I think some of it is they're surprised by how bad the conditions are that children are often living in. Sometimes you can't fathom. I've seen pictures. You can't fathom how bad things are.
Yeah.
You've got a house full of animals and there's feces everywhere and there's just mattresses laying around and they're sleeping on that, and there's no heating and air and it's bare bones. Yeah. They don't have the basic needs for life that I take for granted. I have a closet full of clothes and, we're blessed, and food. I don't have to worry about those things. But I think that's one thing is basic needs aren't there for many people.
Are they surprised by the resilience of kids? Yeah.
They love working with the kids and they love getting to know them and what interests them. And, many of I've heard volunteers say, I told them I'm going to come back tomorrow and they've already drawn me a picture to put on my fridge at home, or they want me to, they want me to talk about the my dogs that I have. That's a way to connect with them. Sure. And they want to hear about, what did your dog do this time? Or, it's things that, how easily children can connect. And really how tough they are. And you see them going through this worst time of their life, but they're still great kids and they're still, finding joy in things, and they're and things like that. So
I coach kids. I've coached kids my whole life. And like one thing
I have as well.
I'm always struck by kids is I think a lot of people are intimidated. They're intimidated by coaching kids, or being around kids, because like, how am I going to relate? Like, how am I going to speak on their level or whatever? But one thing I'm always reminded of working with kids is, like, if if you care about them
and you show them.
Yeah. Like you don't really need to know much else. Like if you care about them, like they respond.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, like you actually have to care because kids are really good at seeing a fraud.
They can.
Like if you pretend to care about them and you don't care about them, like they know it.
Yeah,
right?
You're exactly right.
But the only price of admission, like the only thing you need on your resume is like, I genuinely care about this kid.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually, I coach high school softball, and I see a lot of potential in this one kid. And I went through this week, and I was like, during the summer, we've got to work on this and this and this.
Yeah,
I want to see this fixed. Yeah. And the next day, she was like, "You're busting on me. You're hard on me this week." And I was like, "You know what? I care, and I want to see you do well because I see that." Yeah. And she was like, I know, and I'll try, I'll work. And I feel like she's worked even harder. When you show them you care, I think they will always respond. Yeah. Because I think kids crave. They need that attention. They need that relationship. Yeah. They need those things in their lives.
Such a lonely culture that we somehow created.
And, kids get sucked into phones and iPads and computers and
so I'm curious on your coaching. With having done this for how many years have you done CASA?
I've done CASA for 17 years.
All right, so you've done this for 17 years. You've been coaching.
I've been coaching since 1993.
Yeah. So how is it like having been a part of CASA for so many years? How has that changed your coaching? I'm thinking, like, has it made you more empathetic to, like, you don't really know what's going on in this kid's life?
There's some families that I've coached at a lot of different levels.
Yeah.
I've coached at the college level. I've coached middle school. Right now I'm coaching high school.
Yeah.
I've coached 14 and under. I've coached T-ball, coach pitch 6 to 9 year olds. A lot of volleyball, baseball, and softball. I've learned to connect more with families.
Okay.
That's been a thing that I think some have chosen not to, but I've learned I really want to connect with the families and with the kids' families on my team. And I think that has helped my teams more to get to know their families. And maybe, there's some that aren't in the best of situations, not as well off as some others, that kind of thing economically. And I think the more that I can reach out and be a help for, or maybe, they can't afford a new bat for their son or daughter. I have some resources. I can get I can make sure that happens. We have, or you need new cleats. I know a kid that has grown out of his and they're barely used, and here's a pair. Just trying to connect and make sure that families know that I'm not just a coach, that I care about their kid, and I want to make sure that child gets not only the coaching that they need, but that they get part of being a team. And that they get, what it means to be a teammate. And what it means to, be respectful and represent your team, outside of that team. Because I want my kid, I coach a 14 and under baseball team, and I tell my guys, listen, if I hear that you're not being a gentleman at school or wherever, we've got problems. You're men, you're future men here. We've got to do things right on the field, and we've got to do things right off the field. And, that's what we tell our softball team now too. You got to get it done in the classroom. Are you struggling at home? You got some problems at home? How can we help you? Can we get you to practice? Can we, what do you need?
It sounds like your experience with CASA hasn't caused you to lower your expectations for kids or lower the bar for them.
Absolutely not. I think kids need, more so today than ever, they need that responsibility. They need accountability. Listen, we're raising future leaders.
Yeah.
This generation, at some point, they're going to be in the workforce. They're going to be, in potential teachers. They're going to be in these businesses and running. And so we've got to prepare them for real life. And life isn't getting much easier these days. So I'm tough on my teams. I've always been. But I was raised and was coached tough, though.
What do you think kids are most, like those future leaders, are most missing today that maybe it wasn't missing when we were 30 years ago?
I think the social aspect of it. I think I've seen a lot of kids that aren't always comfortable socially. And I think a lot of it's because they get wrapped up in their phone and they don't have to communicate face to face.
Yeah.
It's easy to send a text and not make a call. So I'm always, I think it's important for kids for you to talk to kids and get that feedback. And, well, what do you think? Well, did you understand what I was saying when I was coaching? Do you have any questions, or, how was your day?
So where do you do that? Because you've got to practice. You've got how many kids on your baseball team? Like
my baseball team has 12, and then my softball team we have 11.
So you got 12 kids climbing out of minivans. You've got an hour and a half. You've got an hour and a half with them. It's easy for coaches the most efficient thing is to talk at them, right? Talk at all 12. Give them life advice.
Yeah,
I don't hear that. That's how do you're talking about one-on-one communication.
Yeah.
How do you work that into your
when they come
practice?
in the dugout to put their stuff up, they kind of show up, not all at one time usually, and, when they come in the dugout to put their stuff up, hey, Carter, how was your day? How's school going? He has a farm. He and his family have a farm. And one time he told me he got kicked by a cow. How's the chickens doing? It's just kind of, how's your day? How's your life? Hey, have you been working on that swing? Have you, and it may not be a long, extensive conversation, but I find that, and maybe throughout practice, I'll wander in the outfield and, just kind of stand in the middle and maybe give a pointer here and there about, take a couple steps back before you, run in. It's easier to run in than it is to take to run back, that kind of thing. And then maybe you say, how, when do you get your permit? When do you get, is that coming? Or, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So just little times to connect. It's not all business in practice. And I'm awful about sharing my experiences. Hey, when I was a freshman, we went to this place and played, and, this happened, a little funny story, a little quirk, and then that'll open them up to talk, and we'll So it's just, I think, communication and just letting them know that you care about what's going on in their life. And I think CASA has really helped me become aware of that, and that these kids, you may not know what's happening at home.
Yeah.
And you need to make sure they know that you care what's happening at home.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an art, right? Like,
it is.
Like coaching is such an art, and you've got a finite number of amount of minutes with them. I think it's easy to make the mistake of just making it all efficient. How much can I instruct during this hour and a half? And as you get more experience, you reprioritize, right? Like making the right play may not be as important as showing up early and asking them how the day at the farm was.
Yeah. And, after practice, I try to, I'll leave my stuff laying, and I'll a lot of times walk them out, to their parents in the stands, and, try to connect with their parents. I've known some of them. I've coached 7 of my guys on my baseball team since they were in T-ball.
Wow.
Because they grew up with my son. So that's been a real joy. So I've really gotten to know a lot of these families and really connected, and consider some of them some really great friends. So I always like to go and say hello and, how's this going? And, and that's just me. I enjoy people and talking to people, and I like to make that connection, because I think it helps your team, and it helps our program, and it helps the community, and it's a whole.
And that individual player, how to communicate one-on-one, right? And developing those leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But CASA CASA is not just a job for me. It's a mission, and it's something that I believe in. It helped my family, and it's, I try to talk about CASA everywhere I go, because it's not like Habitat for Humanity. You hear Habitat for Humanity, you know exactly what they do.
Yep.
They build houses.
Yep.
You hear the Boys and Girls Club, you know exactly what they do. You hear CASA, you don't always know what they do. You it's not as well known. So that's something that I really try to push and really try to talk about to make sure that people understand what I do and what my passion is. And
it's important. Like, it's important work.
It is.
Like,
it really can change the life of a child and the direction that child is going.
Yeah, and it's just without it, the alternatives are don't leave a path to success.
Yeah, Devon is 26 now. Yeah, and is thriving. He has his own apartment. He's got a great job. He is, anytime that I need help at CASA, he understands CASA and what it did for him. And so I'll call him and be like, hey, I've got this fundraiser. Can you come help me carry some stuff and pack it? Sure. And he'll show up and help, or he'll, he's helped coach where he grew up playing. Yeah. He's helped coach in that rec league, and he's a great kid. And I think to myself, without CASA and without Jenny, that CASA volunteer, stepping in and saying, hey, my gut tells me something's just not right, what would have happened to him? Yeah,
that moment by that hero.
What would have happened to him? Yeah. I mean, he could have, I feel like he could have been in a dangerous situation and potentially died. I mean, he could have been killed.
Far more bad outcomes than good outcomes.
Yes. I mean, he could have been, because I think kids too tend to grow up and do the things that they've seen as a child. Yeah. It's that vicious circle, that circle of life,
for sure. And that's particularly an issue in Appalachia.
Yeah. And, my parents were very involved in the community. Yeah. They were coaches themselves. They were, helped out the Little League and the PTA and the schools. And that's what I thought you were supposed to do. So that's what I've done.
It's the existence or the absence of role models in a lot of ways. Like we talk about, you need the three people. You need the three people for resilience. Yeah. A lot of people I talk to can point to one role model somewhere along the way that literally changed their life. Yeah. And those people, when they come into your life at the right time, in the right place,
yes,
can change the whole trajectory of a kid's life. Going back to coaching little kids, like I'm coaching 6 and 7 year olds right now.
Fun age.
Yeah, I hadn't done that in a while. I forgot how much energy it takes. But those kids, you can show them something and they can do it. Like they can model. If you show them the correct technique, they can do it. Mm-hmm. Not the case for 15-year-olds. It's not much more difficult for 15-year-olds. 6-year-old, they do it. They're like, you can see it and then they do it. Mm-hmm. It's a double-edged sword.
It is.
Right?
It is. Because they mimic everything.
If you show them the wrong way.
Yeah. Yep.
They're equally as quick to model the wrong way, which is why we've got to get better coaches at the younger ages.
Absolutely. Yes.
But it's like what you're doing is such an important, that is the important part of life. Like you're putting people in the right place at the right time and in a place where they can make a difference in the world. And you're doing,
we're really trying to break those cycles.
Yeah. It's not easy. But you're doing it and you're doing a lot of it. And I'm hoping I'm going to join the charge and try to drive people to CASA because I so believe in the cause. And I just think there's so many people out there that would benefit from it. Like your 25-year-old that you talked about, she's probably like any other 25-year-old. Like, what am I going to do with my life? Yeah. Right? She probably doesn't know any more than I knew at 25. Yeah. And I bet that experience will inform her of what she's supposed to do in life. And it
Absolutely.
would not surprise me if her career trajectory doesn't change as a result of seeing this.
Yes, it
Right?
absolutely could.
Yeah.
And I think that has been the case on more than one occasion. I mean, it's
bet.
really been the case.
I bet.
They see, oh, this is something that I can do. I can make a difference here.
And for retired people, like the regrets of maybe you didn't do what you were supposed to have done. Like, like what you're good at didn't really match what you did all day. Like this is your chance. Like this could be the thing. So it's cool. Like I bet it's not just changing the lives of the kids. Obviously does. Yeah. I bet it's changing the lives of the heroes.
Of their heroes, yes. So. We have several retired teachers, and they have been in the classroom and seen the kids that have the trouble and that have been in the bad situation. And then that's why after they retire, they still they know there's kids out there that they can reach and that they can help. So that's an easy decision for them. But I mean, boots on the ground, making the big difference in the world, breaking those cycles and putting kids on a new path.
Yep.
To
it
success.
Takes a hero.
It really does.
Takes a hero. Yeah. Well, keep up the good work.
Thank you. Yeah.